Welcome back to Switched to Linux. This is the very brief overview of the Ubuntu desktop distro. So the Ubuntu is probably the most known, one of the more popular, and if you consider which distros are built on top of Ubuntu, would definitely be the most popular. Of course, Ubuntu is built on Debian, so you could argue that Debian is probably even more popular than Ubuntu in that perspective. But overall, the desktop environment is extremely popular. The one we're looking at here is the Unity desktop, which is the native Ubuntu system. It is such a popular distro. Other people have both officially and unofficially supported several other variations. So here's the main Ubuntu site where you can learn about Ubuntu. You can get Mate Ubuntu desktop. There's a GNOME Ubuntu desktop, and there's pretty much everything else you can think of. Somebody has put Ubuntu on top of every different desktop environment. So Canonical is the main organization behind Ubuntu, and they developed the Unity environment specifically for Ubuntu. So some of the things that I really like that Canonical is working on is they're developing Ubuntu to be used with any type of platform, including tablets, phones. It's already one of the more popular servers and desktops out there. But Ubuntu itself, as much as they're doing a lot of great things in that perspective, sometimes they're going a little too far in a few little places. I'll identify a few of those. So how much experience do I have with Unity and Ubuntu? Well, I do have a lot. This is the first Linux distro I've ever looked at back in 2012. And it is the outside of I have my Linux Mint system, which runs, obviously, Linux Mint for my main production work, which is where I get a lot of my deep production done. But I also have two different computers for Ubuntu. One of those is just my very small portable laptop for small tasks. And one of those is my large desktop, which does all my media stuff. It has one of my in-house web servers. It does all my AWS interfacing, terminal work I get done on there. I do my Blender work on it. So my experience with Ubuntu is quite extensive. Everything from graphic editing, little bit of web management, although not a lot of web design over there. So it is a system I'm used to. It is not my favorite desktop environment. I found it has sort of just the way that the dock works here, which is been for the longest time perpetually stuck to the left-hand side of the screen, and other than changing the size is almost entirely uneditable. In the 1604, which is what this edition is, you can now put it on the bottom. I've grown so accustomed to it being on the left side, I just go ahead and keep it there on my main desktop computer, but I have put it on the bottom on my my little laptop. So, some of the things I don't like about it is very much like the Mac platform. If I want to open up multiple instances of a web browser, for example, I can't do it over here on the bar. I have to do it from up here in the menu if I want to open up another instance of Firefox. And then if I have multiple instances of Firefox running, I can't easily go back to them. I can click on this, which will load up the recent Firefox. If I click it again, it will give me this nice stack so I can pick which one I would like. Now this is actually an important factor for me because when I'm doing my development and I'm getting programming in and I'm referencing font scripts and all the other things involved in my regular work as a web designer, I have multiple windows open and each of those windows has multiple tabs open. And I need to do my workflow in that manner. And what I don't have natively on Ubuntu is a very nice way to view and to organize all of those individual folders. That being said, that's why I don't generally use it a lot. But the search functions is very nice. just clicking on the Windows key will load up this Unity search task up here. And these are organized, so I can do my searching specifically for music files, picture files, video files, documents, applications, and the first home box would be the most frequent. So I can see here, I can do click right in on the search, click on the applications bar, and then I can look at what my various options are. So if I want to see which applications are installed here, I can click down here. You can see that the Ubuntu does have the LibreOffice installed by default. There's a couple of your old popular games, Minesweeper, there's a Solitaire in here somewhere. It does come with a couple browsers, one of those being Firefox, which is the default, and then there's also a generic browser up here. Rhythmbox is your main music player. I'm not a big fan of Rhythmbox, so I usually take that off and put Banshee on, but that's a nice thing about Linux in general is you can do that. Thunderbird is your default email client, and then there's there's a few other things. So it looks like VirtualBox is on here. If you do torrents, there's somewhere on here. The transmission is a torrent client. So if you're doing torrents, you can do that. So there's a lot of different functions in here. The settings inside of Ubuntu are nice and robust. The settings icon is there. I usually take it off of this just because the Unity bar here is so tight for space that you can just right-click and unlock from launcher there. You can access the settings also from your upper right-hand corner. With your About the Computer down here, you can access your system settings right here. So I usually keep it off of the system settings. And actually, another thing I haven't checked. Okay, so yeah, you can get to it by right-clicking. So a little thing I do on a lot of my distros allow you to do this is to just right-click on the desktop, change desktop backgrounds, then you can click the All Settings to go back. So this is something, I do this on Linux Mint, GNOME, and Fedora. So inside of our settings here, we can change our wallpaper, and there are a couple of themes pre-installed in here. So there's a high contrast, there's the radiant. I actually like this, the default ambience one. I just think it has a very nice look to it. A lot of nice images included with Ubuntu. I think this is the image I use on my little laptop, and this is the one I use on my desktop. I really like this image. It's very nice. And then, there's a lot of other images here. This one here is one of the ones that will change throughout the day a little bit. I'm curious how that kind of works. Maybe I'll keep that one a little bit. I don't know. Let me see. Just kind of look around at the images. I really like the images that come installed on a lot of these Linux distros. They're very nice images. All right. Yeah, we'll go ahead and keep that one. Over on your behavior, this is where you can adjust your Unity bar here. You can set it to auto hide. And if I can figure out how to get it back over here, it's supposed to be a sensitivity that turns it back on. This is one of the things some people have questioned if a desktop environment built specifically for a distro is more stable. I find Unity to be actually a little bit buggy. I frequently have problems accessing menus up that are particularly the ones that are up here. I've actually seen that in GNOME as well. Never in Cinnamon or some of the other ones. Over here, okay, so anywhere on the left side should have revealed that. I'm not sure why it wasn't. Enabling workspaces will enable us to turn on and view the different workspaces there. And then you can show the Show Desktop bar there if you want to use that. Over here, you can let's see, menus being always visible or only when you hover over them. And then you can put the menus in the title bars up here, or you can put them in the top status bar up at the top of the screen. And I actually, just because I'm used to them from using Windows a lot, I always change this button over here to the title bar there. All right, so most of these settings in here are pretty standard. We'll look at the online accounts real quick. So here's where you can attach any of the online accounts that you might have. There is a legal notice down here. They actually put it in a little brighter color so that hopefully you see it. This just kind of talks about what Canonical itself doesn't generally collect a lot of data on you. In fact, there was a little bit of controversy with that Amazon app I got rid of on the Unity bar earlier. They enabled the system to, whenever you type something in the search bar, to even go out onto the internet and search for that. Well, that might fly with the Windows community or the Apple community, but the Linux community is not into that kind of stuff. And so Canonical got a lot of flack for that, and this is the first edition since they introduced that it is turned off by default. Now, I haven't changed any of the system settings here. All I did prior to installing the distro on the VirtualBox is I installed the guest edition so you can see it in full screen. Here's the legal notice. At least it's small enough that you can actually read the whole thing, without your eyes going buggy, and that's it. But basically, it's just telling you information, and mostly that's over here just so that you know that when you install these or turn on or add these online accounts that you're effectively agreeing to their terms and conditions. Just a reminder of that. Now, under your security and privacy, this is the one I was curious on. Okay, so here is, do you want to record the latest file items? This doesn't go anywhere, but it will appear in your recent documents lists. If you just toggle this guy off, it'll never remember the documents that you opened. So that's nice and handy. Here, this is where that controversial search bar is. So this is turned off by default. If you do want to include online searches, turn that on, and you will have online searches appear up here in the search bar. Now, this one here, actually, I don't like this, that these are turned on by default and that did not give you the option to turn them on or turn them off when you started. So I don't want to send error reports or periodic system information to Canonical. So I would really like it if they had turned those off by default, or at least given you the option to turn them on or turn them off at the startup. Now, one of the things about Ubuntu is it is one of the distros that will prompt you at installation if you want to install the third-party codexes and or drivers. So you can do that. And actually, I think just codexes. Drivers are actually down here in the software and updates. We'll get there in a second. Under hardware, this is just pretty standard stuff. Under your mouse here, you can change, just do your right click, left click. So nothing too surprising there. If you do want to add a printer, clicking on the printer button there will bring this dialog box up. And let's see, yeah, actually I do have a printer plugged into my network right now. So if you actually just click on this and click on network printers, it's actually doing a scan, and here it actually finds the printer that I have installed on my system. So it's generally, I've seen some issues with some Epson printers, but otherwise installing a printer on Ubuntu is actually easier than installing one on Windows because the drivers are generally already there. In the system settings here, there is a very nice backup feature. If you want to use this, this will allow you to select which folders you're going to save. So in this case, it's just going to select everything within my main home folder. It tells you specific folders to ignore, and then the storage location will actually determine where you want to put this. And if I remember correctly, I don't actually use this a lot. Okay, so yeah, I should be able to go under here and actually set this up to go onto my network folders. I don't actually use the backup system on this one here. I do other things for my backups instead. But it is a feature that is there. Also down here, this is the same screen that you get whenever you come up here and hit the About the Computer up here at the top. And this here, whenever you load this up, it double checks to see if you have updates to install. So it will tell you that. Under Software and Updates, this is where you can select where your repositories are coming from. There's main server, server from the United States, or other will allow you to look at other places. We're going to cancel that. Over here, if you happen to install any other PPAs for any installations, you can remove them here. I like that you can actually add PPAs here as well, which is handy. This is something I wish that Fedora had, because installing all of the media codexes, they do not make it easy over there. And you can't even add. There's a plugin you can, or a system you can install to remove PPAs, but you can't actually add them from the user interface on Fedora. You can here. That's nice. Over here, you can select the types of updates that you would like. If you are a beginning user, you're going to want to uncheck this guy here. Enter your password to confirm that. Because what's going to happen is important security updates, it'll do this. Recommended updates, some of these recommended updates may not be as fully tested. Most of them are. Chances are, if you have just these first two boxes checked, you're not going to have any problems. But the unsupported updates, these are the types of updates that could potentially break some aspects of the computer. So you want to be sure of that. Over here, you can actually check for any new version of Ubuntu, whether it's long-term or not. The default is to check for any long-term. If you get your Ubuntu 16 system up and you absolutely love it, you might just change that to never, so it never upgrades to the latest edition. Okay, these are just some key files. Now this screen here under additional drivers, this here screen will show you the extra proprietary drivers that you could install. This is a very nice screen to have because it will enable you that if you are having some software difficulties, like some hardware software interface difficulties, that you can come over here and see if there is a better driver. You can see all of the proprietaries I'm using generally are referring to my guest editions for VirtualBox to allow me to have a full screen mode here. And then here, you can actually come over here and select this box here, which will send you updates before the updates are officially released live. So there is a lot of information you can do here from the graphical user interface. Anytime you change anything in the software and updates, it's going to ask if you want to reload this, because it's assuming you've made some changes to the repository, so it always wants to refresh the cache. Over here is your date and time. It selected that correctly. Here's one of my major gripes on Ubuntu is it's almost going the way of like Windows, where it's becoming so user-friendly that it's kind of becoming complicated. So here, if I want to make changes to my user profile, I have to hit the unlock button and enter my password. That's all great and fine. I like that. But if I want to come down here, here's the problem I have. If I want to change my password, I have to use a strong password. It will not let you use a password it considers weak. So if I do password, it says it's not good enough. And it does not allow me to just say, hey, I don't care. Like in Fedora, if I want to change my password, I'm not sure about changing it, but I know creating it. If I want to create a password and probably change a password that's weak, I have to do an extra layer of confirmation so it knows I'm choosing a weak password, but it's my computer. I should have that choice. Now, obviously, I can't change my password to password. Bummer. We still have the terminal. Hitting Control Alt and T will bring up a command line, and if you just do a sudo password and the username, I can change this to whatever in the world I want to change it to. And so it doesn't matter if it's weak or not. So it's not a total deal breaker, but I would really like it if in the UI I could set a weak password if I want a weak password, because there are very, very legitimate reasons that you may not want to have a password that's super secure and strong. For example, this is a virtual box that I'm just set up and installed to teach people how to use Linux. So I don't really need a strong password here. Now, if you're walking around, like this computer that I'm recording this on is one of my portable production computers. And for security of the system, and there is a more complicated password on this, so someone can't get into it if I, leave it behind somewhere or something. It's definitely secure. But if it's an office home computer that never leaves the house, you could argue a burglary, but I don't really see a need at all times for that. Just a couple other things about the distro here. The buttons up at the top, these are all independently operated, so you can adjust your microphone and your sound settings from here. It's actually a very nice system here for this. Let's see, is there anything else we wanted to do here? It looks like that's about it for the major walkthrough. So I guess maybe the only other thing you might want to do is install the Unity tweak tool, and if you want to do hot corners, I believe that's what you need to do if you want to add desktops to your desktop icons. Adding a program to your Unity bar, that might be useful to know. So if you open up a program here, so we'll open up Thunderbird. So if you right-click, there is now the option to lock this to the launcher. So now that it is locked to the launcher, I'm going to close it out. Now that it is locked to the launcher, it will stay there. And I can just drag and drop these guys around. So if I want to have my email right there at the very top, by my files, maybe I might want my files down here. And so any program, if you really want to get a program onto the bar here, you just run the program and then right-click. And from the right-click, you can unlock it, takes it off the bar. You can load it up. This here, I can actually load up a new document. This one here, I can right-click Thunderbird just to compose a new message. It probably won't let me do that because I don't have an email account set up. But you can see it does prompt us for creating a new account there. This guy here opens a new window, so I can do that. So that's just the real brief walkthrough of the Unity desktop. My ultimately evaluations of it. It's definitely a good distro for a Linux beginner, mostly because Unity is, for the most part, very easy to figure out, and it is very clean interface. It's not a system I'm using on a lot of my deep production. It's simply a matter of preference. I'm sure you could learn all the hotkeys for it and work in this thing really fast. I just happen to be used to a Windows type environment. That's why I use Linux Mint Cinnamon, because it resembles that Windows environment much better. I have the same productivity speed on that as I do on a Windows computer. So this has been Tom with Switch to Linux.